Imagine you are taming an animal. You are in the wilderness, you've been camping for some time, and seen some animals which are covered in a long coat and have no obvious claws or protection on them. They walk around in large herds and follow a leader. You have been picking off one or two for food and materials, but now you wish to move on to explore, and you've had an idea. Because they seem to wear big fur coats, and you have used this fur to clothe yourself. You refer to them as the clothed ones. What if you could take the animals with you on your journey and have a reliable source of food and materials wherever you went? What would inspire the animals to follow you? At the moment they run from you when you approach. If you approach slowly, some curious ones stay longer, but once the herd moves, there is nothing you can do. The animals seem to be mainly motivated by the following: desire for food and fear of danger. One idea would be to chase them. The problem with this is that although you can make them move, you cannot reliably make them go in the direction you want. When you've tried this, you've scattered the herd. Perhaps if you had a companion you could corral them more easily, but for now this seems like a limited approach. Instead, you try to lure them with food. You approach one of the clothed ones very slowly, holding some grass in your hand. It takes a few attempts to convince one to eat. At first you have to place the grass in front of you for the clothed one to taste. When you try a few more times, the animal eats from your hand. Soon, a few are willing to do this, as they see you as no longer a threat. Over the course of some days, you find that now when you approach, some of the clothed ones come towards you expecting food. This has led to most of the herd expecting your arrival in the morning and greeting you. You compare this to other animals you've encountered. Some birds seem quite comfortable being near you if you don't move too fast, and similarly, you can feed them from your hand. Others seem to be very cautious of you and will scurry away no matter what. The smallest animals with many legs sometimes seem unaware you are even there, but you can catch and move them, but not a lot more than that. The few times you've seen much larger animals with claws and big teeth, you notice they're unwilling to approach. They prowl at a distance and seem to be working you out as much as you're working them out. You wonder what it would take to tame such a creature. You've found now that you can approach the herd, and as they move towards you, you can walk away and they will follow. You have made special effort to feed the leader of the herd, and this means eventually all the herd follows him, who will follow you. What is it about the leader that means others follow? First of all, you're fairly sure it is a male. Secondly, he is one of the biggest males of the clothed ones, although a few are bigger and do not seem to lead. He stands out in some way from the others, and seems to have a natural curiosity to move on his own. Is there anything else that might make the others follow? Do they remember some chance experience that showed his reliability to find food or avoid danger? Is it something about his appearance or demeanor that he was born with? Could it be a mix of all these things, or more? Perhaps if you can relay some of these traits, it will help you to lead the herd yourself. You try a few tests to move the herd over small spaces to be sure that you're ready to go. Occasionally you must stop and go to the back of the herd as you round up the stragglers. Sometimes if you get lost or just stop for a while, and here you use the other strategy of danger. You force the sheep to move along, and sometimes you use a stick to hit them when they are particularly unwilling. Whilst you've been doing this, you had noticed that another person has arrived in your area. Much like the wild, strong animals you'd seen, he has kept his distance, sussing you out and watching you. Once when you were away, you saw him walking away from your camp. You noticed a small amount of food had gone missing when you returned, and your things had been turned over and rummaged. After that, you took your most valuable things with you when you left your camp, leaving only what you could not carry. Since then, he doesn't seem to have returned, but this hastens your desire to leave with the herd. As you finally set out with the herd of the clothed ones, you notice on the horizon the figure of a man. He's following you. You had hoped that if you'd left, the man would no longer be a problem, but like many animals, he seems intent on following you for your food, or perhaps more. Perhaps you should have offered him a small amount of it when you first saw him, and made yourself amenable to him. Perhaps this was not possible. What could you do to make the man leave you alone? If he understands you, you could talk to him. If not, you may have to use force, like with the straggler animals, but for the opposite reason. What else could you do? Could you tame him like the animals and have him help you in return for food? How would you know that he would not just wait and steal from you later? While the clothed ones are limited in what they can do to you, the man could do a lot more harm, particularly if he has learned more about you. He may even wait and kill you, either right away or after befriending you. For now, you may resolve to hope you can shake him off as you travel, but you must keep your wits about you. Your desire now is to follow down by the river and find more sources of food, and perhaps find a way to understand the changes in the land. Like before, the valley is no longer growing. You would like to see out this change somewhere that is safe and manageable, with a reliable food source. The animals you've tamed will help this, providing you can find food for them. They seem to do an important job of turning things you can't eat into something you can. You look at the morning sun in the east, which is to your left, and you follow south down the river with your herd. In the stories of the Bible and the Old Testament, we find a great importance put on sheep and goats as a source of food and materials. Living as a nomadic pastoralist is an ancient way of surviving that still goes on to this day. It is worth considering what these people must have done, and why, in order to understand the stories. How would they have first tamed animals? Why did they choose certain animals over others? In Genesis, God creates 3 types of animals: wild beasts, beasts of the field, and creatures which crawl. It seems to imply, as you may have found from your own experience, that there are animals which do their own thing, are wild, animals which live and will work in the field with you, and animals which come and go between the wild and the field and do their own thing. You could imagine that in the Garden of Eden, which we understand is a kind of walled garden made by God, that some animals might stay away, others remain outside or on the periphery where they may hunt or not be noticed, and some which go between the 2 places, the wild and the garden. In this categorization we have 2 opposites, wild and tame, and the third seems to sit between the 2. The tame animals are the animals who will stay with you and do what you say. The wild animals do not wish to be your companion and will do their own thing. The third type may seem to wish to stay with you and do what you want to do for a time, but they may just decide to leave and do their own thing. For the most part, these animals might not be much problem either way. If we imagine the perspective of the animals, what would each make of this arrangement? Did the tamer animals help Adam in his job of tending the garden? We know animals like pigs naturally turn soil and keep it nutritious for growing. Some animals could carry heavy loads if needed. Others, like goats, will be natural weeders and maintainers of overgrowth. It seems that most of this category of animal would require help in defending themselves, or have a tendency towards groups. What other animals might be in this category? Did Adam manage to tame any of the wild animals and bring them into this fold? For the wild animals, do they help by keeping the number of tame in check too? Too many goats, for example, might leave the garden barren. Do they, in a way, assist Adam in preventing the animals from leaving by maintaining a barrier? Would they ever come into the garden fully and cause problems? Or do they remain entirely in the wilderness, unaware of the garden at all, seeing only its large walls and not entering? It seems that this group would mostly be predators, but there are some animals which do not hunt that may be just disagreeable or solitary, which may not want to reside in the field or garden. What could they be? The creeping creatures that go between may have yet another perspective. They would see the lush and green garden and the barren wilderness. They would, if they could, contrast these two worlds and see the differences, perhaps. If an animal was smart enough, he may see that God has made a small place that is safe for certain animals, but hidden a harsher outside world from them. If one such animal could communicate this hidden knowledge, what might happen to Adam and Eve? The field or garden is a clear space that can be overseen by man. Man can even make his own field and put animals to work in it. In the story of Cain and Abel, we see the roles emerge after leaving the Garden of Eden. Cain works to make his own garden of sorts, and Abel uses the animals that will happily live with people and do as they say. Perhaps Abel roamed the land finding pasture, returning to bring animals for food and materials, as well as when it is time for sacrifice. Cain, by contrast, would have stayed in one place, tending the land. If Cain's land was bad, he would have to start again in another place. Perhaps this happened several times as he worked out where was best. Abel, however, was not tied to the land in the same way. He could move around and find pasture, and if one place was bad, he could move to the next and take his fruit, the sheep, with him. Could this be a reason for the difference in God's judgment of their sacrifices? Was Cain's fruit not ready, or not planted in the blessed place? What about their roles could show us a reason for God's judgment on each? When God takes the Hebrews out of Egypt, what does he do to ensure that they're obedient to him and follow him? For one, he provides a food source so that they do not starve, which is entirely dependent on him. This is an essential part of taming an animal, to control its food source. Does he ever put a judgment upon them when they're disobedient? In what way are the Hebrews like the herd? How are they different? God leads them by choosing a leader of their group too. What was it about Moses that gave him the ability to lead? Was he like our leader of the clothed ones in the story in any way? A lot more could be said on the pattern of taming in the Bible, but this is just a small introduction into the idea. Perhaps, as you've listened, you have thought of more examples and seen how this pattern works there. I will continue the story of the exploration of the wilderness in the next video, and explore some ways in which it may help us understand the stories of the Bible. Thanks for watching.